Hi everyone, welcome to Nana's Tiny Kitchen. Today I decided to do a little baking because I was running low on my hoagie rolls. I like to bake my own bread because at least I can control the ingredients. I know that there's a handful of ingredients versus if I buy a store-bought package of hoagies or sub rolls or any kind of rolls for that matter. There's like more than a paragraph of ingredients and who the heck knows what's in it. So I started off by taking a 1 1/3 cup of warm to the touch water. And we don't want the water too hot because we don't want it to kill the yeast. And I took one of these packets, that you can get them in the supermarket, Red Star, I use the Platinum, whatever brand you like, but it's not the instant one. This is the regular yeast, dry yeast. I took one of these packets and emptied it into this 1 1/3 cup of warm water. And I also added 1 tablespoon of sugar. Stirred it up, and I set my timer for 10 minutes. Yes. So within that time, you should see the yeast start bubbling and start doubling and start getting nice and poofy. This way you know your yeast is good. Sometimes you'll buy a package of yeast and you go through all the steps of making your either pizza or your bread, and it won't rise because the yeast was for some reason no good. Maybe the water was too hot, or maybe the yeast itself was not good. But this is a good way to find out whether your yeast is good. So this one is blooming up nice and pretty. It went from just having the little tiny pieces of yeast to actually poofing and feeding on that sugar. So we're going to let this go a couple of more minutes until my timer goes off. And then we're going to start putting together our flour and all of our other ingredients that are going to go into my bread machine and mix up to a nice yeast for our hoagie rolls. Okie dokie. Okay, my yeast is just about ready, and you could see how nice and fluffy. You could even look from the side and you can see how it's bloomed up, and that's what I want. That means this is really good yeast. In my bread machine right here, I already put in 3 cups of bread flour, and I'm going to add 1 more cup to a total of 4 cups, nicely evened cups of bread flour. Wow, English. Unbleached, by the way. Okay, there's my timer. Now, I want to put salt in here, but I don't want my salt to touch my mixture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a hole in the middle and add my salt. I got my tablespoon, and it's going to be a full tablespoon of salt. And then I'm going to cover it up because I don't want it to touch it right away. If you want to go even further, before you even add your 4 cups of flour, you can put your salt in first. Now I'm going to add my mixture. Now I have this, the machine is going to be set to mix dough. Now if you're using a stand mixer, I probably would say about 7 minutes until it forms a nice dough. Okay, let me put my glasses on so I can see. And that's going to get nice and mixed up. Now if you're doing your ingredients exactly, the 4 cups of flour, exactly 1 1/3 cups of the warm water, you're going to get a nice, beautiful dough. It's not going to be too sticky, and it should, when you pinch it, it should go back a little bit. It should have a little bit of a give to it. Almost like rubbery. Okay, we're going to let this mix. This is going to go through actually 2 cycles. It's going to go through its first cycle for mixing for a few minutes, and then it's going to stop. After it goes through the second cycle, before it heats up, I'm going to take it out because I don't want it to heat up in here. I want to take it out, make my rolls, and then let them rest. And you're going to do the same thing if it was in the standalone mixer. You're going to take it out, and before you form your rolls, you're going to let it rest for at least 15 to 20 minutes before you start making your rolls. Okay? Okay, now that our dough is all finished mixing up, I'm going to take it out. And as you can see, it's very springy. It's not sticky. I can handle it with my bare hands with no flour on it, and it's perfectly fine. Now we're going to cut this depending on how big we want our hoagies to be. Now let me put this aside. Now mind you, I was just thinking about this. As you're adding your ingredients to be mixed up, the yeast with the liquid and everything, at that point, if you wanted to, you can throw in a teaspoon of garlic and maybe a quarter teaspoon of rosemary, and that'll give your bread a nice flavor. But for this one, I just want plain old hoagie rolls. But you could do that if you wanted to, and I have done it before, and it comes out delicious. So I'm going to cut this into threes, or like I said, as big as you want your hoagies to be. If you think that's too big, you can make them smaller. Now as I stretch them out, I can see that this is going to be huge. So I'm going to actually cut this one in half. And do the same thing with these. They're not going to all be the same size unless you're measuring them out and weighing them. But you know what? There are no rules. Can make some smaller ones, can make some bigger ones. I'm going to stretch these out. Go from the inside out like a nice rope. This one's going to be on the smaller size. But what you want them to do is double in size. So I'm going to score this in the center. Not all the way through though. And I'm going to take a little bit of cornmeal and put it on my baking dish and a little bit of flour. And I'm going to place this right on the pan. Now the reason why I like to add the cornmeal is because when it's baking it gives it a nice crunch on the bottom. And again, working from the inside out. Look, I didn't even need any flour with this. And score the center, not all the way through, and place it right on the sheet. I like making them different sizes depending on what I want to use them for. Score it. Now you notice when I made the dough, I didn't add any milk to it. I didn't add any butter to it. I want these rolls to be nice and light. I found that when I add the butter or the oil or the milk to the recipe, the bread comes out too dense, and I want it to be nice and light. Now one thing I learned about making rolls from scratch is that one of the most important things is to leave it alone. When you're letting it rise, leave it alone. Score it in the middle. Now if I wanted to make sandwich rolls with this instead of hoagies, just make a circle instead. Last one. Give it a little pat down. Score it. Place it on your baking dish. Let's move this out of the way, because now what we're going to do is we want to find a nice dark warm place for these to rise. They're going to be rising for at least an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my oven and turn it on only for a couple of seconds, just to get it a little bit on the warm side. In the meantime, I have 1 egg white, and I'm just going to baste over the top of them. And this, when they're baking, will give the crust that nice crunch. And at this point, if you wanted to, you could add your sesame seeds, or you could do an everything roll. I mean, this is the point where you would be adding your toppings to it, if that's what you wanted. Now, we don't want our oven to be too hot, so we want to be diligent as far as keeping an eye on whether it's just for a couple of seconds. We don't want the bread to start cooking. We just want to take the chill out of the oven. Let's see that. Beautiful. Shut it off. Perfect. Cover this. Now I'm just going to take a paper towel. If you have a tea towel, you put it right over it, and this is going to go inside a nice warm dark spot, and I'm going to set my timer for 1 hour. We want them to at least double in size. The whole idea is to set it and forget it. Don't be messing around with them. Let them do their thing, and you will have some nice, light, delicious rolls. Okay, oven is preheating at 375 degrees. I pulled these out a couple of minutes before so I can preheat my oven. But as you can see, they pretty much doubled in size, exactly what I wanted them to do. So now I'm going to stick them in the oven, and they're going to be closer to the top, not center rack, but the one right above that. And I'm going to say about 20-25 minutes, but you know your oven, so you'll know when they're done. My oven is probably closer to 25 minutes. So I'm going to stick these right in there and set my timer. 375. 25 minutes. And then I'll give them a check. And maybe I'll give them a turn. But you'll see, they come out fantastic. Okay, here we go. We got a few seconds left. They've been in the oven on 375 for 25 minutes. And we'll pull them out and I'll show you what they look like. Ta-da! Beautiful, fluffy, light, delicious. Perfect crust on the outside. Let's take a look underneath. Beautiful, beautiful. Now I'm going to let these cool off, and then I'm going to wrap them up and stick them in my freezer, so the next time I need rolls, there you go. Okay guys, let me know what you think. I hope you try this. It's really, really easy. Stop buying store-bought crap. Did I say that out loud? Yes, I did. Make your own. I have a couple of different recipes for different types of rolls. I just knew that I needed these in my freezer, so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do a video and show everyone how easy this is. Okay, till next time, ciao.